Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new, terrifying episode of BrainStorm 9000.
Oh my God. This is the favorite song of all times. I love it.
In celebration of my personal favorite holiday of all time.
It's called The Thriller? The holiday?
Halloween!
AMG, which means oh my God, with a Russian accent. It must sound very good. So we are here continuing our endless quest for brain health, presenting to you BrainStorm 9000.
BrainStorm 9000.
Right across from me is Master McMaster.
And across from me is Dr. Schultz.
So we call you Master McMaster because you are a master of horror, scary movies.
Yes, I have a master's degree in horror and scary movies. And I think by this point I must have earned a PhD in listening to true crime podcasts. I don't know.
So what the hell, no pun intended, is going on with all this horror stuff?
Yes.
That's what we are about to find out and discuss with the world's utmost authority, Master McMaster.
It's not McMaster, it's McMaster.
Excuse me, you're not going to murder me for that.
No, I'm not. But although, side note, when some people actually ask me how to spell my last name, and the way I spell it for them is instead of like saying M-E-S, I say MC Master. And they're like, oh, like you're a DJ? So you're like MC Master.
Well, you are a DJ on this scary show. So far, it hasn't been scary enough. So let's scare people. Tell them how much time you spend every day listening to horror shows.
Actually, on my commute to work today, I was listening to one of my favorite true crime horror podcasts, Sword and Scale, to an episode about a young man who lived with his mother and had been kind of plotting her death for a while, and his sister's death too. Ended up murdering his mother, decapitating her, and doing some things to her corpse.
True story?
True story. In Florida, I believe.
So, of course, across from me, I have a person who is extremely fascinated with all this kind of stuff.
Fascinated.
And we are doing this program essentially on Halloween, right? It's Halloween.
It's
Today is
the
Halloween.
most wonderful time of the year. I know people usually sing that in reference to Christmas, but they'd be wrong, because the most wonderful time of the year is the spookiest time of the year. It is Halloween, bitches.
Well, I have to reveal to people the darkest part of my life. I spent almost 10 years working as a psychiatrist in the jail.
Oh.
I met a number of people who allegedly killed other people. And I moonlighted. That's how we call making additional money after hours in medicine, in a prison where I met more. So I have a lot of things to say.
Yes.
And one of the first movies, American movies, that I've ever seen in the Soviet Union, almost underground, on a video, was The Thing.
Oh, really? John Carpenter, master of horror movies.
Scared the gazillion things out of me.
It's so good. Kurt Russell, man.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
The best.
Yes. Well, I was most interested in the UFO part of it, which is also scary. You probably
Yes.
like, what's the name of the movie? Alien?
Oh, yeah.
You love it?
The Alien franchise is one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah. So my experience with Halloween has begun a while back. I'm in the United States for a good 30 years. And when my children were capable to talk a little bit more than they were when we just came and walk, we started the participation. Basically, the parental units were buying a lot of candy and giving it away, and the children were dressing up and connecting with adult children and their families. And even before that, my dream came true. The movie that I wanted to see more than anything else in the world was E.T. So I came here in 1988. It was still not as old as it is right now. Drew Barrymore was still very young. And my favorite phrase that she ever said was, "I'm not stupid, you know," in the movie. So in this movie, there is a scene of Halloween. There is a Halloween scene, which is one of the central scenes in the movie. Remember?
When they're trick-or-treating?
They are trick-or-treating, and then he
With
starts
the
like
E.T.
flying.
dressed up
E.T.
as like
dressed up, yes. So that was my first introduction, but I didn't know that it was Halloween. And then we learned about Halloween. It seems to me...
No, because they don't have Halloween in Russia.
No. At that
Or
time
in
they
the
didn't.
Soviet
Right now they
Union.
probably talk about it. I don't think they have Halloween. Actually, to such an extent anywhere but in the United States. Studying for this program, I found out that although there are holidays, for example, Dia de los Muertos, which means Day of the Dead, I actually was going to make a picture by a very, very nice, super nice restaurant, Mexican restaurant, because they have skeletons out dressed in female dresses. Looks very cute, but it turns out it's actually very different from Halloween because people go to the graves, pay respect to their family members, and then they paint their bodies or wear costumes looking like skeletons. It's about remembering people who are not with us anymore. Halloween to me seems to be a lot of fun.
Halloween is the most fun.
I understand that it literally translates from Old English, if you say it correctly, differently from Halloween itself. My English is not good enough to say it, as a day before the Day of All Saints. So it's kind of like on a scale, on one arm, there is the Day of All Saints, right? And then on the other hand of the scale, there is the scary Day of All Dead and scary stuff and murder. Mm-hmm. Do you agree?
Yes. Well, Halloween to me, obviously it's become different things as it evolved over the years. You know, now it's associated with candy and a lot of college girls dressing in the sluttiest possible outfit, wearing lingerie.
Seriously?
Yes.
On their heads?
Yes, it's for a lot of people it's about attracting a mate. However, it's also it's a fun time of year to put ghost decorations and skeleton decorations around your house and to watch horror movies about slashers and ghosts and hauntings and spooky stuff like that, and zombies, my personal favorite.
Or maybe I should give it a chance. I've never done it.
Oh my God, it's so much fun. And I think there's a lot of different reasons that you could kind of look into, like, why is this? Like, why is all this morbid stuff like death and skeletons and zombies, this scary stuff, why is it so much fun?
Well, I'll give you a picture. If you are ever in Jerusalem and you come to the Eastern Gate, which is sealed off, you'll see that also by the gate, the dead from Mecca were brought and buried by the Muslim population. And right across from the gate, there is always a person sitting and praying for the Christian Messiah not to come in. So people, it's actually striking how much people believe in the dead. You go to one of the most famous in the world churches. I'm sorry, I failed to mention the accurate name. And people observe Jesus' blood coming out in the grave and come to the grave and kiss it. And this afterlife, after death stuff is so much involved in basically every culture in the world.
Yeah.
So one of the things that comes to my mind immediately, that like it or not, but we have the tendency to think, just in case, that maybe there is life after death. Of course, one of our favorite characters from our most favorite movie, Kill Bill 2, did not believe in life after death. She got out of the grave, remember?
Yes.
Beatrice.
Oh my God. Being buried alive is my biggest fear. I have to learn that technique that she did to get out.
Well, but the other woman poisoned the teacher who taught her how to do it, remember?
That's true.
Right. So,
No one's invincible.
yes, except for you, Master McMaster.
Death is inevitable.
Yes, so death is inevitable. Everybody knows about it. And of course, people are fascinated with death and what happens after death. I mean, we hear that one day the Messiah is going to come and the dead are going to rise. I mean, look at the Thriller. They've risen, right? In the movie, this idea is kind of played with. And not being a sophisticated consumer of horror movies, I presume that stuff like that happens there all the time. The dead come back to hunt people, right?
Sort of. It usually when zombies come back from the dead, like in my favorite zombie movies, like Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Shaun of the Dead is a great funny horror movie.
Yeah.
And like Pet Sematary, movies like this, the dead come back to life usually because of some like chemical spill.
Oh, I also saw Korn. Is it a scary movie? With teenagers.
Are you talking about the band Korn spelled with a K?
No, I'm talking about the movie, the scary movie, which at least when I saw it in...
Oh, Children of the Corn.
Yeah, Children of the Corn.
Children of the Corn, yeah. Classic Stephen King. Ugh, king of horror. The
Liked
best.
it. Kind of. Scared me.
Yeah.
So...
I love being scared.
Why do you like to be scared?
I've thought about this a lot, and I don't know. I don't exactly know why. I haven't been psychoanalyzed, but I psychoanalyze myself on a pretty
Well, we'll
regular
analyze
basis.
it right now, like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So
Right.
okay, so I think there's a difference between being fascinated by like true crime stories, like the one I listened to about the boy cutting his mother's head off, and a difference between that and being fascinated by horror and like loving to consume horror movies. But I think that they have one thing in common, because I'm someone who is obsessed with all of those things. I think that they have one thing in common, which is they allow you, so consuming this media about true crime stories, true cases of murder, and also horror movies about crazy serial killers going on killing rampages, what they have in common is they allow me to sort of experience what might be the scariest things to me. People killing people for no reason, and like doing all these depraved and horrible things that I'm so afraid of and that I don't understand. And it's like a way for me to experience that without actually being threatened. So it's kind of like a way to face my fears and embrace them.
It's a very good idea, and it could be very true. Another idea that I would like to throw at you is that one strong emotion takes away another strong emotion. And also a similar emotion can suppress another emotion. For example, we are going to have a program about anxiety, and I'll have to talk about the fact that we already know that there is a formation in the brain which is called amygdala, which is responsible for this famous fright or flight, and now they say or freeze reaction. Some people freeze in fear, and unfortunately cute squirrels freeze in the middle of the road, but some of them don't.
No.
But that's a different story. So fear and anxiety kind of sit next to each other. I'm not saying in the brain, but in our life. So maybe when you see something that is very scary, it helps your anxiety to go away. Because you control it, you can turn it on and off. It kind of touches upon something in your brain and in your soul, and allows you to process without a potential of being really scared out of your mind and not feeling anxious. So it's good for you, because most likely your brain can either be anxious or scared. So you'd rather be scared because it's kind of a ticklish sensation somewhere in your body, like an emotional tickling, you know?
Well, and also like seeing scary things and like being surprised, which is a
Right.
big element of horror and stuff.
You
that
cannot
would-
predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, and doesn't that cause? It probably triggers something like an adrenaline rush,
Of
right?
course, it triggers the adrenaline rush again, which is very similar to the adrenaline rush that happens during the severe panic or severe anxiety episode, but it's controllable. You are in a very controlled environment and it's safe. You are sitting in the chair or lying on the sofa, whatever you do, watching your TV, or you are in a movie theater surrounded by other people. It has 4 walls, the roof. You know that it's all produced by humans. It's not real. They make you feel that it's almost real, but it's not, right?
You get to immerse yourself in it, but then
Yeah.
you get to walk away from it.
So you basically experience something similar to anxiety, fear, but in a very controlled situation. Am I going to say that I recommend everybody who is suffering from severe anxiety to watch horror movies? I have no idea, but be my guest and try and see what's going to happen.
Well, and there are like adrenaline junkies who pursue like really dangerous activities like
Yes.
skydiving and, fast car driving. That's what they call NASCAR, right? Because it gives you like an adrenaline rush when you do crazy shit like that. Do you think that's like a similar thing?
Probably, but it's similar, but it's a little bit different. So
'Cause it's scary.
touches upon different. It's like, for example, when you go to the gym, and let's say you start watching people working on their upper body. There are so many different options to work your biceps and your biceps and triceps, and your chest,
Nice a breeze.
and your deltoids. And it's an endless number of exercises. And when you ask them, why are you doing all these different things? They'll tell you, because we want to touch upon different fibers in the same large group of muscles. So the same could be true about the brain, especially considering that the brain consumes 60% of glucose in our body. The only other organ compatible by the level of consumption of glucose in our body is our muscle. So we can say that the brain is the strongest muscle.
Yes.
Right, McMaster? We
Is
have
it-
to push our agenda here.
Is it well? So we've already established, hopefully by now, that the brain is the most important organ.
Listen, yesterday I had a conversation with somebody who is actually very intelligent, who kept saying that it's not the case, that skin is more important. And
Really?
one day I spoke to the guy who seems to be pretty intelligent. I told him, look, I have this video out. By the way, if you haven't watched it, we have a video channel which is called,
Brain Tech 9000.
yes, on YouTube. Watch it.
It's so fun. Yeah, it's like the visual arm of what we do here on BrainStorm 9000, but it's more focused on exploring. What would you
Different sites that can be visually presented to people of brain health. And a couple of first episodes are funny, but we are going to talk very soon about neurobiofeedback because it's better if you see it, because it's complicated. Drama therapy, better if you see it, right? And stuff like that. So
really cool shit.
it's another arm of our joint brain here. And since you are going to use your eyes, the eyes are an outgrowth of the brain, as you learn in the first episode.
Indeed.
So somebody comes in and I say, look, I started this video channel together with Jane McMaster and went around the world. That's what is going to happen in the first episode that you're about to watch, asking people what is the main organ. And the guy goes like with a lot of confidence. And some people don't know. I tell him, can you imagine? There are some people who don't think it's the brain. He says, well, of course it's not the brain, it's the skin. What? Seriously.
And like I think that's a real. We've heard that a couple times, but it's it's one of the least popular responses. So what did he say?
Well, he just...
For why is the skin more
no
important?
No comment. So coming back
Is it not
to the
safe
skin.
for radio?
So do people skin each other in your scary movies?
Yeah, sometimes.
Scary stuff.
Yeah. Ugh. Buffalo Bill.
So one of the explanations is that probably it helps a lot of people who either need the adrenaline rush but are afraid to jump out of the airplane, or it helps people who do have a tendency to get anxious to re-experience basically an ultimate level of anxiety, meaning fear,
Yeah.
in a very controlled situation. This cuts across probably every single culture in the world. A lot of people watch scary movies everywhere I've ever been. It's very popular. But again, see, to you, I don't know what Halloween is to you. You say that for some people it's a chance to pick up a mate. For example, I have a tendency to dress as a rock and roll musician, re-experiencing my earlier life when I did have a band and played rock and roll. I'm not gifted. So
Yeah,
you'll
the
see,
dressing up part of Halloween is interesting.
so you'll see my picture. I'm going to share it when I'm dressed as a rock and roll musician, and in one of the pictures I look almost like Ozzy, who I admire. So Ozzy and his band Black Sabbath, right, are a very good example of people's fascination. The guy ate a mouse on stage.
Oh, was that him?
Yeah, Ozzy did.
Well, okay. I mean, so yes, so that's true.
Right.
But there's also another thing to dressing up that's kind of similar, I think, to like a horror fascination, is it allows you to kind of step into someone else's shoes.
Yes.
And you can kind of be someone else for a day.
So maybe one day I can join the team of people dancing the Thriller, because I saw it happen 2 years ago during the Halloween parade.
You should definitely do that.
I just need to learn how to dance.
Oh yeah, no. So to quote one of my favorite horror television shows, American Horror Story,
Right.
fucking great. In the third season, Coven, about witches, one of the characters says, I think Halloween gives people permission to be who they really want to be.
Well, I don't know about that. So I guess I want to be Ozzy.
Yeah.
Although Kiss sounds more attractive based on the way I am, but I just don't look like them at all. And I cannot stick my tongue as far as their bass player can.
Gross. So the dressing up part of Halloween, I think, is a lot of people's favorite part. That and the candy, which I love the candy. For me, the most fun part is watching the horror movies. I have scary decorations all over my apartment. I actually have a couple that are sensor controlled, so when you walk by them, they light up and make spooky sounds like oh ho ho ho. No, that sounds like Santa. Ooh, there you go.
Yeah, that sounds scary.
It's fun. I've got spiders hanging from my ceilings and like little witch figurines that will go.
People, of course, are fascinated with anything that has to do with death.
It is really fascinating.
Well, most of the books published about life after death are bestsellers, and they appear rather frequently, every few years, on the market. One of the most recent ones was written by a neurosurgeon. I don't remember the name of the book. So one of the first books that I read in English was called Life After Life. So it was about life after death. And it is not going to go away, because the question on everybody's mind is whether you die, like dead, nothing, or you kind of leave your current body and experience something else. Who knows?
It is the greatest mystery
Of all times.
of all times.
About fascination with murder. After I've met a number of people who, let's say allegedly, because that's the right way to say it, murdered other people and had to interview them
When you were a psychiatrist in the prison?
in jail. Big
Okay.
difference between jail and prison. In jail, people are held until the final verdict, so until they're found innocent or guilty, unless they're out on bail. Or they do time, which is called 365 days is a year, prison in some states. But that's not that important for our conversation. So I'm very familiar with what is called the antisocial personality disorder.
Oh, yes. Tell me about that.
Well, the main feature of these people is that there is only one person in the world who is important to them. It's this particular person.
Themselves.
Yes. And everybody and everything else around them serves only one purpose, to satisfy their needs. Nothing else. So they are cold-blooded bastards, and they choose to do whatever the hell they want to satisfy whatever needs they have. So they can rob somebody and kill them or throw them out of the window without experiencing absolutely anything.
Yeah, and like, so this is one of the things that's the most fascinating to me about true crime. And I think it's the same case for a lot of people with my interests, is that what's so interesting about true crime is the psychology of it and trying to figure out, how does one human being do something so horrible and so depraved to another human being? How does this happen?
So we don't know how it happens, but I can suggest a couple of scenarios.
Like, why? Why is the big
So one
question.
I just said, and some people channel being antisocial by nature. I don't know whether it's genetic or not, or maybe they were brought up in such a horrible way, into something more productive. I can tell you that when I was a very small child, and we lived in the barracks with my grandchildren, and my parents were always involved. Nobody abandoned me. I had a very healthy and happy childhood. We had a neighbor who was older than me, and I admired him. So he basically murdered stray animals without any emotions, just for fun.
That is a warning sign.
Was a total bastard, and then became a bodybuilder. And then the next thing you know, he's a cardiac surgeon, married, everything is fine. So somehow he channeled his tendencies into something productive. Of course, I'm not saying that it's a good thing to do, but of course I presume that the majority of the mercenaries, black special ops, also either are trained not to feel the pain when they kill other people, or might not have. And most of them are very good people. I'm not trying to criticize anybody who is in the military, don't get me wrong. But I suspect that some people who are spies, of course, we don't count in James Bond, he is perfect.
Of course.
And we don't count in characters played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, they're perfect.
Of course.
Right? But it's possible that these people channel this type of personality into something that at least is semi or almost or maybe or probably acceptable. There is also crime of passion. We need to remember that it is very frequent. For example, during the recent visit to Spain, I learned that crime of passion in Spain is at a horrible level. Lovers kill each other because of jealousy. So I asked the tour guide, mostly men, right? She said, you'd be surprised, women kill them too.
Oh, yeah, it happens.
Right. So do they have an antisocial personality disorder? Of course not. They just reach a point when things become out of control, and if one or two of our listeners never had a situation when they felt totally out of control, I admire them. Have you ever felt out of control, Master McMaster?
Not at that level.
No, but I'm not saying at the level of wanting to kill somebody, but out of control, period. Without a portion of violence.
I guess so, but not in the kind of way that I would feel like that was even an option.
No. I'm not saying that killing anybody is an option. I'm completely against violence, period. Any type of violence. But what I'm saying is that for some people, feeling out of control translates into feeling extremely anxious and wanting to run away. It's not like every single person who catches their lover with another person kills them, right? Some just step away, run away. I don't know what they do, cry. But some people feel overwhelmed, and because of a very complex combination of qualities that they have, that are a result of the interaction of their genetics and their life experiences, wind up killing people. Mm-hmm. And then once it's over, they are sorry. But then we know, unfortunately...
Supposedly.
No, some of them are.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Some of them are.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, not that I'm fascinated with that, I'm disgusted by mass shootings in schools. Used to be mostly in the United States, last month already in Russia. 19 people died, 50 plus were wounded, and the guy, an 18 years old student, shot himself at the end. This is also insane. This is abnormal. Right? So, as a human being, I feel that people who murder other people, they're not, pardon me for saying it, normal.
I think that is fair to say. And
Right.
you mentioned antisocial personality disorder. What about things like sociopaths and psychopaths?
Well, so sociopathy is another way to call a person antisocial.
Oh, okay.
A lot of antisocials, and we don't need to name any names because people on different sides of the aisle will point fingers to different people. A number of politicians have antisocial qualities. Famous historical figures, of course, were like murders were antisocial. I'll say about one, Stalin. I think I never met him. Of course, I was born after he died. I would dare to say that Hitler probably was antisocial, and I'll stop at that. But, some people manage to make a career because they're antisocial.
Yeah, like I think I've heard a lot of people say that sociopaths either become serial killers or CEOs.
Yes. They can be very successful because they totally disregard other people. And when somebody is making an amazing product, again, without pointing fingers at what we have on our desk here, they might ignore everybody else and just keep pushing and verbally abusing them and being demanding. And then the product comes out and everybody is fascinated with the product and the personal story of this individual.
Yeah.
One thing I can tell you, having watched a lot of YouTube videos because we needed to learn how to make our own videos, I came across a couple of very famous people who talk about how to become a successful businessman. And they all say one thing. All successful business people have one thing in common. They cannot rest. They need to hustle. They need to get where they need to get no matter what.
Oh, I guess that's why I'm not successful. I love naps.
Everything else is less important. This morning, I confess, I watched yet another Casey Neistat's video about how much he sleeps. And the guy sleeps 4 or 5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
He's very successful.
I would be a zombie and not in the fun way.
Yeah,
if
but
I did that.
Of course, Casey Neistat seems to be a very nice guy. You don't need to be a difficult guy, and a lot of people are very nice people, but they are driven. So people in business are driven people. And if you are one of them, you'll be successful. And if you prefer to watch movies all day and do sports and, play cards and have fun, this is more important for you. Deal with it. You are not going to be a multi-gazillionaire. That's okay. Maybe you'll win the lottery.
Maybe.
Maybe not, especially if you're in Carolina. That's where the person is who won $1 billion.
No, and congrats to them.
Yeah. So the same is true probably. People probably are born with enormous predisposition to violence. I can't even begin to tell you how many people I saw in my life coming in and out of jail, meaning living and coming on either petty crimes or major crimes. And do people work with them? Of course they do, but they can't change them.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's so interesting about listening to all these different true crime stories, for example, is there can be so many different reasons why someone would do something like that, and trying to figure out why this could happen is so interesting. You kind of get to try to play detective and figure out what the fuck is happening. So I was listening to another horror podcast episode about this middle-aged woman who was found beaten and strangled and dead in the back of her Mercedes. And her husband was distraught. She had a couple kids. It was a very sad situation. They were trying to figure out who did this. And it ended up being the husband
Right.
And at first it was kind of like, oh, like maybe it's a crime of passion. You just, the rage built up or something. But then like people dug deeper and realized that he had this whole double life. And he had, a mistress on the side, and they were really into bondage, and he was into this like secret underground, like they were all into bondage together, and he just really wanted to like go and like live that life. And this, in his twisted mind, was like the best way to do that was to get rid of his wife by making it seem like someone randomly killed her so that he could go and live this life that he's always wanted to live. Like, for a lot of people, if you want to go and do something else, you could just get a divorce. You could just leave your partner.
Or don't get a divorce, which some people choose to do. So
Go
I
to
can tell
therapy.
you, as a board-certified psychiatrist who is familiar with DSM-5, Diagnostic Statistical Manual 5, with all due respect to all these titles that I have and all my experience, I have to tell you that a guy like that is just plain sick.
Yeah.
And we
it's so
actually
sick.
don't know how to treat this type of people. So, for example, for antisocial personality disorder, we do not have any treatment. And that's why the society still up to this day isolates them. And in some states in the United States, kill them. Do people study them? Of course they do. Are there psychologists who spend their entire life studying murderers? Of course. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure there are psychologists who study the impact of watching horror movies and reading horror stories to people. I can tell you that to me, for as long as there is no harm done, people can do whatever the hell they want. But certainly killing each other is not a good idea. I mean,
No.
I'm surprisingly nice with my Russian accent because, of course, I would have a tendency to say it in a totally different way. Once and if we finally find a way to deal at the very early stages with these murderous tendencies, we can talk about trying to help these people. But they don't want anybody's help.
Probably not.
Like Dahmer didn't want to see a psychiatrist, I don't think so.
No, he had a lot of problems. He had a very troubled upbringing.
Yes, so this is just plain wrong, and the best way to deal with it, every society has, is to isolate them. By the way, I can tell you an interesting fact about another fascination. It was shown that pickpockets are more active during public executions. So in the old times, when people were standing with their mouth open, watching somebody's head to be chopped off or somebody being hanged, pickpockets did their job.
I mean, because you're like fucking transfixed watching a human being die before your eyes.
So again, the fascination is there. I think in your case, Master McMaster, is probably very helpful and healthy.
I love it. It's fun
Unless
to indulge
you spend
in.
most of your time doing it. Based on my experience with you, you're not, because you are very productive. And
I do a lot of things. I spend a lot of time nursing and helping cats.
Right.
I spend a lot of time nurturing living things. But I do enjoy...
You also work very productively.
I work.
And creatively.
I work, and, sometimes I will fall into an internet hole full of celebrity gossip that has nothing to do with murder. It's just, it's a good, guilty pleasure.
No, it's not even guilty. I mean, whatever.
But yes, well, so my boyfriend and I, we have a spooky home, and it just makes us so happy. We have jack-o'-lanterns everywhere, and
meaning like baseline. It's not even for Halloween. Baseline.
Well,
every single day.
We did just move in, but we plan to keep them up year round.
Okay, so good for you. See, it's very harmonious for you. If somebody brought the stuff to my house, I would remove it.
It's an aesthetic.
For you.
Yeah. For me. Yeah, and it's so fun. We love it. And so as far as like true crime stuff goes, so I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, And we have, I gathered some statistics about, because it seems like this stuff is like growing in popularity. Like true crime podcasts and horror movies and true crime documentaries are just like have exploded in the past couple of years.
So that probably happened before people need to find an outlet from what horror is happening in the society,
real
and
horror.
they want to recluse themselves. So again, watching all this horror at home is in a very controlled environment. They have total control. They can push the buttons. They can watch whatever the hell they want. So I find it actually healthy.
That's a really interesting insight. Okay, so I'm going to share some stats with you, and I want to know like if it surprises you or not. But actually,
give us the stats, McMaster.
In light of what you just said, this actually kind of makes a lot of sense. So some stats. So 2017 was the biggest year in the horror industry.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Not only in the horror industry, in the horror everywhere.
Yeah, for real.
All right.
Let's see. So for statistics about like who is watching horror movies, 40% of horror fans are millennials, my generation. 36% are Gen X, so just like a little bit.
Right.
So that's more my boyfriend's generation.
Right. You got yourself a younger boyfriend?
Oh, no, sorry. No, that Gen X is before millennials.
Okay.
Gen Z
okay. I always
is after.
Okay.
Gen Z are the babies. So 13% are Gen Z, and then only 12% are baby boomers, which is more your generation.
Me,
yeah. And then, so it's more younger people that are interested in this. And let's see. So this is another really interesting one. It seems like the majority of people who are interested in horror and especially true crime are women. So there's some stats that say that between 42 and 49% of horror movie viewers are women. And then as far as true crime podcast goes, my favorite podcast, Sword and Scale, they, according to their statistics, 70% of their listeners are women between the ages of 25 and 45.
Excuse me, McMaster. I thought that your favorite podcast of all times is called BrainStorm 9000.
That BrainStorm 9000 is my favorite podcast for my brain. It's where I go to get my brain stuff. Sword and Scale is where I go to get my murder stuff.
Yeah, so if I had to guess why my generation is not so fascinated, is because the new thing that my generation discovered that took us away, not me personally, but a lot of people who are my age, grew up in the United States, took them away, was the drug culture and the hippie movement.
I thought you were going to say they witnessed so much horror like in the war.
Yeah, but to take, to keep themselves away from the horrors, they were doing drugs, right? And for your generation, and I'm sorry to say that, and it's not a judgmental statement, and I'm not shaming anybody. Certain drugs are kind of like a background already. Like a lot of people smoke pot, and it's not
more
it's
normalized.
Not new. Yeah. So now, the fascination that never goes away is murder, horror. You know, again, a way to escape in a controlled, very well controlled environment. The real horrors of the real world.
Yeah, and what I never thought about it before in the context of like our current political climate and like everything that's going on in the world right now. Of course, midterm elections are next week. All of that is so stressful, and what's happening in our country and in the world in general can be really scary. So I never thought about it that way, but it makes sense that just in the past like 2 years,
Of course.
horror and true crime culture have exploded in popularity.
In an attempt, probably not that much consciously, probably subconsciously, to escape. The same is probably true about the utilization of computer games.
Yeah, and then I also think it's interesting to think about like why women tend to be more interested in this stuff. There are a couple different theories why. So one is that women can relate more to like victimization.
Yes, I agree.
And yeah, so another theory is that women can be more inclined towards empathy and thus like feel more invested in true crime stories. Not necessarily that women are more capable of empathy than men, but they can like women can relate more to victims, I think.
I agree with all of the above.
And I think it might also be the case that part of the fascination on the part of women or, other social minorities when it comes to horror and true crime is that it can be kind of a learning experience. So in a way that you can learn how to protect yourself from a potentially violent situation and learn what you can look for to prevent some of these horrible things from happening to you.
And I have to tell you, to end this conversation on kind of a funny note, of course, American women are more capable of compassion than Russian males. That would be a fair comparison.
I believe that. I mean...
So maybe on this positive, we can tell our listeners that at least from the point of view of Master McMaster and Dr. Schultz, watching all this stuff is totally normal, probably helps you in some way to deal with painful reality.
Yes, celebrate the spookiness, go watch your favorite horror movie, listen to some fun true crime podcasts.
And still, after you participated in Halloween and watched the hell out of your movies, go and vote, okay?
Yes, go vote, people. Participate in the real horrors of the world.
And keep your minds wide open.
Boo! Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of BrainStorm 9000. If you like us, love us, or marginally tolerate us, hey, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever the hell you listen to your podcasts.